Just making sure I got this centered up right. Reviewed some of my video from before and it's a little off, but that should be okay. Alright. Hi. So my camera, the little camera card actually filled up, and I kept going only because I only have so much time to work on this. Being a busy human being in the mundane world, you know, doesn't make it easy. Last time you saw, I was cutting. I was cutting all this out with a swivel knife. And instead of using my bone tool, I ended up using a mallet and a cedar, which mimics the same feel. You can see it's a little bit different though. There's a slight feel. This is a little more of a hard look. The other one's a tiny bit softer. And I think that's because of the bone. Now, I've seen all sorts of things, whatever. You know, it doesn't really matter what you use. It's just a background. And, you know, there are a lot of tools out there to do that. As a matter of fact, let's see if I can find the one. I have so many stamping tools, it's not even funny. Maybe it's over here. I have one that's kind of cool. Those aren't the ones. Well, look, if I find it, I'll point it out to you guys. Maybe it'll have its little shiny glimmer in the corner and go, hey, here I am. And I'll go, hey, there you are. Ah, here it is. Here you can see there are a lot of little dots going on across here. My only problem with this is that I can't find a cedar that's the same size as this. So what I'd love to see is, I think this is 5 or 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 dots on here, and really it'd be awesome if there was like a 3 and a 1. You see evidence of this in a lot of the cases where you'll see, like if I push here and then I push again and again, see that pattern forming? You'll see that a lot on a lot of the pieces out there. So they must have had tools, obviously, that made these types of marks, not just solo ones. I could probably make one out of bone, and I probably will make one out of bone. But right now I'm not going to. I'm just going to keep going with the cedar tool just to keep this uniform on this side. I used my spooner to make this a little more beveled. Now what we normally do in modern day is that we go around and we actually, like I did on here, we kind of push down the outer edge so that the thing we want to pop up pops up. And that is more of a modern traditional thing that we do. Though you'll find a lot of times when they raise these things, you'll see the edges are slightly rounded. And what I went and did was, when I initially did a lot of this, I pushed down on the outer edge to push that down so that when I went back with the cedar or the bone tool, whatever, I made a little bit of a recess. I just probably even still pushed down some. Calf skin's amazing. But now you can see I just lost my mark for my background. And there we go. So what I did though is I reverse it, and you'll notice that a lot of times you'll see that there's a beveled edge on the pieces that they're doing so that this pushes up that way. So once this is completely dry, I'm going to actually even heat it just slightly to help harden it. But mostly what's keeping it hard is going to be the glue inside that's been absorbed into the leather. So as you can see, I have my blue tiger. I traced it on. On the original one, it's very sketchy. So what I did was I went back on my cell phone, pulled up an image that was almost exactly the same size, and kind of modified some of it. It's still not perfect, but you know what? That's the beauty of medieval work. Everything's unique and it's hand done, and yay. Yay. And I even have East written here. I just lightly sketched it out, so I'll be carving that in with the knife, and then I'll pop it out with the spooner. But for the moment, I told you guys about this. You can see the salamander. There's his little head, and there are flames, and there's his little feet and stuff. This side I haven't touched yet, and I'm going to at some point. I'm still keeping it moist so that I can still push the leather in before the glue dries. You can see the marks and such, and I really had to go back and kind of make this a little bit happier. It's still not perfect, but I noticed a lot of times they don't do a lot of high decoration on the edges. And I've also noticed, instead of going through the 2 layers, they actually only go through the outer layer, the decorative layer. You'll see that. I don't think these were exactly meant to be carried by those cords as much as they were just to keep the whole thing shut and closed to encase and protect the thing that was in the case. Anything that has a double cut probably had something a little heavier and was carried around. And an example also would be, I would have probably done the bottom with 2 and the lid with 1. And the reason for that, the cord's not supporting this. This is not the support, it's the bottom part that's the support. So doing a double down here does help. And if anything, it would help to actually prevent moisture from coming in on this part. So what I want to do today is I'm just going to do a couple of different things. I'm going to be finishing up this. I'm going to cut these, and I'm going to kind of show you how I finagle it to do its thing. If I had some thick leather on me, I would probably use the thong type thing that I told you about. I don't think I do. I might pause this for a minute, go see if I can find anything and come back, but let's just go with the cutting for now. I pre-marked, you can see the marks here. I went around with a ruler from here around to here pretty much and figured out where they need to go. I have a sharp knife. Primarily is just taking your time and you just score along that line and you just keep cutting in carefully. Try not to cut yourself. It's pretty easy to cut yourself, especially when you have a very sharp knife. Even though you might say, oh, but it's a sharp knife, doesn't mean the leather is going to be your friend. The knife might slip right across that tough glued leather, and next thing you know, let's hope this doesn't end up with me going to the hospital. So you can actually hear it cutting through one of the pieces of leather. You hear the scratching sound. Pretty much I can now start to hear and feel underneath the next layer. So again, yep, it's getting that next layer. I can hear it. Yep. It's kind of quiet. Oh, no, that's still a little. Let's see. Alright, that sounds pretty good. Could take my knife. I run the risk though of slicing my leather as I'm trying to lift it up, so I recommend you don't. I will use my spooner for this part. If you look in there, you can see I've scooped out the 2 pieces, the 2 layers. And I'm going to go back on this side. See? We made it through. Now, the one thing I've noticed that I don't like about this tool is the rubber handle here does make marks on my leather as I'm trying to pull this up. So I have to be kind of careful when doing this. This one, I can kind of lift it up a little, make sure I've got the 2 layers, not more. Looks like I may have even cut through an extra layer on this one, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. So I'm just kind of working this a little bit with the spoon just to stretch it. See, it's already starting to pull up. It's getting that pseudo shape that we want. And again, just back and forth. You're really just taking this lovely calf skin and stretching it. Calf skin loves to stretch, by the way. Some of the most flexible leather out there. So if you're going to be making a CuirBouilli case like this, highly recommend calf skin. Try not to use a full-grown cow, because it's just not. It's not going to stretch the way you think it's going to. You have more of a fight, and more power to you. So I'll probably just put the skewers back in for this, though I would like to try the leather for you guys, just so you can see how it's done. So I'm going to pause it here real fast. I'll go grab it and then come back and I'll show you what to do.